Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Well, Tony, on today's show, you have given me a task and you have not really well defined the task, which means we are really setting ourselves up for people to get angry at us in the comments.
All I'm asking for is for us to name the top 5 transfers all time in Ohio State football history. Now, will we forget some possible old transfers that we're not thinking about? Maybe, but I think there's enough justifiable recency bias that if we've missed somebody, be like, what are you talking about? This guy's much better than that guy. And so we're talking about the top 5. I wanted to do offense and defense, but I can give you the top 5 defensively and save you the show. It would have been Caleb Downs and then, either Anthony Schlegel or IGB, and then Lorenzo Styles, and then probably Tanner McAllister or Tywan Malone. So that is to say, the names on the offensive side, much bigger than most of the names on the defensive side. So let's go ahead and start, Tom. Give me your number 5.
Yeah, this is tough because it feels like I have a very solid top 8 or 9 or so, and between about 4 and 8, I think they're all somewhat interchangeable. But I'm going to go number 5. I'm going to go Seth McLaughlin, center transfer from Alabama. Was he someone that you had on your list?
He's just off of it. He's number 6 on my list. So
Yeah.
we can
All right.
talk
So
about it. Yeah, because go ahead.
yeah, so we're going to just, if we both have someone on our list, we'll talk about him when we get to the second person who has talked about him. But yeah, Seth McLaughlin won the Rimington Award. Fantastic, obviously fantastic transfer, huge part of the 2024 national championship season. I think he might even be a spot or two higher had he not blown out his Achilles in November of that year and missed the college football playoff. But he was so good in the time that he was playing for Ohio State that he still won the Rimington Award, despite the fact that he missed the last couple games of the season. You also kind of wonder, what does that 2024 Michigan game look like if Seth McLaughlin is still at the center of that offensive line and they had not had to shuffle things for the second time in the middle of that season due to the season-ending loss of a, let's say at least a top 8 Ohio State transfer offensive lineman.
Yeah, that was one I struggled with. And he probably would have been in my top 5 if this was just an offensive line or certainly offensive line only, but offense only. He's one that everything you said is absolutely true. You could probably put Josh Simmons if he had stayed healthy.
Yep.
There's a pretty good chance he's going to be in there somewhere. I mean, again, he was a first-round left tackle, so that's a pretty good thing. And he was pretty good from about the midpoint of his first year at Ohio State in 2023 until his last snap in 2024. And so was Seth McLaughlin that season, as you said, just solid. And came into the offense, and people liked him. And he's there. I'm here to take Carson Hinsman's job. And everybody's just like, well, he's a good dude. We don't dislike him. They were all able to mesh. I have no problem with that one. My number 5 is Quinshon Judkins. And was he off of your list?
He was one of the others receiving votes on my list.
Yeah. They ran him at times. Like, he was the number 1 running back, 194 carries, 1,060 yards, 14 touchdowns in his junior year. 1 year with Ohio State, 1 year wonder, but was certainly not the player, the person that we had heard from some people on the Ole Miss side of things where, he's a locker room cancer, he's a team cancer. Like, nobody ever said anything bad about him when he was at Ohio State, and he ran hard. And if you look at this Ohio State offense last year, if they had him running, some things might have been different. So he's my number 5.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. He was one of the people that I had on my list and then kept putting names ahead of him because I thought, well, certainly he's going to be one of the top 5. He was one of the first 5 I wrote down. And then I thought, oh, well, what about this guy? Well, what about this guy? And yeah, like I said, I think they're a good, solid 8 or so names on this list that could be top 5, and he is certainly one of those.
And who's your 4?
Number 4 for me, I'm going to go with Will Howard. And did you have him?
He's my third.
All right, so we'll get to him later.
Yeah, my 4 is Julian Sayin. Who is he on your list at all?
Julian Sayin is my 3rd.
Okay, so all right. We'll talk about Julian Sayin, then we'll move to Will Howard, because I think this will be the last time we talk about Julian Sayin as the number 4. And certainly, I think there's a possibility that he's going to be number 1 by the end of this season. He certainly doesn't need necessarily to win a national championship. It would help, but the fact that you've got more years out of him, you'll have more years out of him than Will Howard is key. The accuracy, the expectation that I have for him this year to take the next step. A redshirt freshman was really, really good. It was a Heisman finalist. So let's see what that season did for him in terms of turning him into the next level of quarterback. And I think it's going to be pretty darn good. Now, you're missing some talented tight ends and Carnell Tate, so he's going to have to deal with that. And the good news is he's a year older, so he can.
Yeah, he is more experienced now. He probably came in with more just raw talent than Will Howard did, but Will Howard obviously came in with a lot more experience than Julian Sayin did. And Will Howard, it was just 1 year, but Will Howard was just exactly the quarterback that Ohio State needed that year. Well, Julian Sayin is just, in terms of pure talent, probably a better quarterback, a more exciting quarterback for NFL folks to drool over. But Will Howard was just exactly what it was, just like, what's the best kind of socket? Like, well, if you need a 10mm socket, a 10mm socket is the best kind of socket. And Will Howard was the 10mm socket that Ohio State needed that season. Can you tell that I have recently been looking for a missing socket in my, maybe, listen, I'm not here to talk about that. So yeah, I think Julian Sayin, I honestly, I think Julian Sayin, you could put him at 5. You could, after this year, have him at 1. I put him at 3 to sort of split the difference, because I'm sort of baking in, yeah, you're going to get a second year out of him and it's going to be pretty good. Will Howard is someone who just gave them exactly what they needed. He came in and he was one of the people where people looked and just kind of laughed at that. You're taking the guy who lost his job to Avery Johnson at Kansas State, and this is the guy who's going to, and it's like, well, hold my beer. That was a real Ryan Day hold my beer kind of moment, because they had been looking at Cam Ward, who ended up winning the Heisman that year, and they take the guy who was the Kansas State quarterback, and by the time the season's over, he's tying or setting the record for most consecutive completions in the national championship game, and just had, he was not Michael Vick. We talked about this about Julian Sayin he doesn't need to be Michael Vick. He was not Michael Vick. There were times when he tackled himself, it looked like, in the open field, but he also was a tough runner. He got the yards they needed him to get. He made the throws he needed to make. He made pretty consistently good decisions. He was the perfect quarterback at the perfect moment for Ohio State.
He is absolutely everything you said. I can't say anything bad about him. And that's, when you talk about the other recent national championships for Ohio State, the quarterbacks that won those, you can say some things like with Cardale Jones, it was 3.5 games, and it wasn't always pretty, but it was perfect timing. But other than that, like, his time at Ohio State was up and down. Craig Krenzel, even watching that season in 2002, you knew you weren't watching a crisp passer, but they were all tough as heck. Will Howard, I can't look at him and go like, yeah, I mean, the arm wasn't there. It's like his deep ball got better. The accuracy was always there. His ability to run was there. The leadership was fantastic. The chip on his shoulder was great and necessary after being essentially, pushed aside, like you said, for Avery Johnson. One man's treasure, trash is another man's treasure. And Ryan Day took this piece of driftwood and they created art with it, basically, with him and Chip Kelly. So it's impossible for me to say something bad about Will Howard based on the 1 year we had of watching him, talking to him, and everything that came from that. My number 2 is Caleb Downs.
Well, Tony, he's my number one. So we're going to have to, we are once again going to be flip flopping because I'm going to guess that your number one is my number two, which is Justin Fields.
Right. And so let's go ahead and talk about Justin Fields then, because he did not win a national championship at Ohio State. None of that was his fault. He is the best quarterback I've ever seen at Ohio State. He was there for 2 years. He brought back college football. He brought back Big Ten football. He was instrumental in doing that. So let's not forget about that. Caleb Downs didn't bring back nothing. All right. He did. Nick Saban left, and what did Caleb Downs do? I'm running away. No, I'm just messing. I'm just trying to prove my point. Justin Fields, he's another quarterback at Ohio State. I can't say anything bad about. I can't nitpick. It's unfortunate that he got to Ohio State when he did, because the 2019 was that was a tough row to hoe with those teams. But I still think, man, I still would love to have seen LSU and Ohio State, but he's my number one.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields is all the stuff you said. Plus, I want you to I'm going to time travel back with everyone to the Rose Bowl at the end of the 2018 season. And we're sitting in the media tent out at media days right before the Rose Bowl. And Tate Martell is talking about the fact that he's not going to transfer. He's never going to transfer. He's not going to quit on this team. The quarterbacks that they had at that point were Matthew Baldwin, Tate Martell. I don't think Chris Chugunov had come in as a transfer yet. No. So yeah, it was really, and we didn't know for sure if Dwayne Haskins was going to leave, but we were pretty sure Dwayne Haskins was going to leave. So at that point, you're looking at the Tate Martell, Matthew Baldwin quarterback battle, which I don't know how that would have played out, but I know how it played out for those guys afterwards. And Baldwin had knee injury issues and just never really got on the field in any kind of meaningful way. And Martell transferred to Miami, then transferred to UNLV and never really got in the field in any kind of way. The improvement from whatever the 2019 season would have looked like to what it looked like with Justin Fields was about as big a night and day difference as you could possibly imagine. And then he got them to the final minute game-winning drive against Clemson, despite all of the other accoutrement that happened earlier in that game. And, you had a young receiver breaking off his route and ends up with an interception. And that denied us a chance to see what would have been potentially one of the greatest national championship games we've seen. And the next year he gets him back to the national championship game, despite all the other stuff going on that year. And then Trey Sermon breaks his collarbone right away against Alabama, and the defense looks like what the defense looks like, and they lose that game too. But those were two national championship caliber Ohio State teams, I think. And a lot of that was because of Justin Fields.
I don't want to take us too far behind the curtain, but we're recording this on Saturday, June 6th. 9 years ago today, Justin Fields decommitted from Penn State.
Wow. That's wow. There's a whole separate alternate timeline where what does that look like?
Boy. And so your number one then is Caleb Downs. So feel free to go on.
Yeah, Caleb Downs, just again, he was a multi-year starter, came in with just absolutely astronomical expectations and met or exceeded all of them. I think probably maybe exceeded all of them. Was by far one of the leaders on that defense that won the national championship in 2024, was one of, if not the leaders on the defense that was certainly good enough to win the national championship in 2025. Like they very easily, the defense was good enough to win back-to-back national championships, despite playing with two different defensive coordinators, two different systems. Caleb Downs was a big reason why. Caleb Downs is just the eraser on the at the back of that defense where someone else makes a mistake, it's fine. It's fine. You want him to play near the line of scrimmage? Fine. You want him to play deep? Fine. You want him to cover? Fine. Like, he can just do whatever, and just was consistently always in the right place. You never had, Caleb Downs busted on that play. Like, never. Like, ever. And it's hard, if you're looking at this in terms of positional value, like, yeah, a quarterback is going to be the guy that has the most direct impact, but man, oh man, I have a hard time thinking of a player who you pick any player at any position, you go, who is the best, just in terms of like each position at Ohio State, like who would be the best player to ever do it? It's like Orlando Pace on the offensive line. Sure. Caleb Downs, I think, might be my answer at safety. And if it's not, he's certainly in the top 2 or 3.
I think the most recent Buckeye Weekly we did, or a couple of shows ago, we talked about, should this be another top 5 defense for Ohio State? One of the comments on YouTube was like, why do people hype up Caleb Downs so much? Because he didn't do nearly as much as Jordan Fuller or Malik Hooker. And my response was, he erases, he's like pre-crime from Minority Report. He stops things from happening because, well, he reads it and he takes that away, so the ball has to go somewhere else. And that's a lot of it, is just the fact that he eliminates a play from happening in his region. And so there's nothing there. It's the joke we make about Jazz. It's the tackles that he doesn't make,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And again, another player you can't say anything bad about. The way coaches talk about him, like, your parents don't even talk about you like this. And I'm not talking about your parents. I'm just like, the people who love you most are like, I mean, he's good, but like the coaches that when they talk, even scouts or NFL coaches, when they talk about Caleb Downs, it's just like, I want him to marry my daughter. I want him to be my safety. Everything about him they love. One last question: do you think if this team is going to win it all, does a transfer from this team on this team this year need to be in this top 5?
I don't know if they need to be in the top 5, but I think there's a real possibility that there's someone in the top 5. Let's see. Who's the most likely transfer this year to end up in the top 5?
Looks like we have a morning show.
Well, yeah. You know what? That's fine. You know what, Tony? From your lips to the podcaster's ears, you can listen to that. Well, maybe we'll have that episode up before this one. I don't know. Time travel is possible, and the Buckeye Weekly Podcast and the Buckeye Tomorrow Morning Podcast are making it reality for you.
Synergy. That's what we do here. So if you have not yet hit the thumbs up, go ahead. If you're watching on YouTube, please do that. If you've not yet subscribed to the Buckeye Insiders channel, please do that as well. Hit the bell to be notified when we're dropping these videos, and that way you'll have them. On the audio side, a 5-star rating and review for the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, for the new show that Juck and I launched, the Time and Change Will Surely Show, talking about the past, present, and future of Ohio State football. You can find all of those on the audio side. You can find them on the YouTube side here as well at youtube.com/@BuckeyeInsiders. And we are launching BuckeyeInsiders.com soon. If you go to the website right now, you can sign up to get updates on that, and hopefully we'll have that for you. Not lightning quick, but quick. And so stay tuned there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.